All right, hey everyone, let's look at a lesson on the normal distribution. What we have here is the mass of apples or potatoes. They're pretty much the same size, whatever you prefer. And we've got an average right here in the middle. So it's not kind of said, but it's 150. And it doesn't say that here, but it does have a standard deviation. A standard deviation is the typical distance a point is from the average. But this is really just a histogram. It's a bunch, like, you got some apples here that are really heavy and some apples that are smaller, and then there's a bunch of them that are in the middle. And so you can see this red line here, and this red line is actually the approximation line. So after figuring out that this is roughly what it looks like to have like an apple in your orchard or a potato in your field, this red line is actually going to define what a typical apple will look like. And so if we get rid of the histogram, this is what this curve here is actually a mathematical curve. You can look it up online what the curve is for it. And it's got an average of 150. It's right in the middle. And then there's a standard deviation. So let's look at the number. And so in this case, the standard deviation is 20 and on both sides. And so remember that standard deviation is the typical distance a point is from the average. So typically, an apple or a potato would lie 20 away from the average, so anywhere between 130 and 170. And knowing that they're normally distributed is kind of neat, because what that does is it tells you that 68% of the data lies in there. And so with normal distribution, a standard deviation is defined very precisely as 68% of the data. This number is a law. It's that number. Now it's rounded to 68, so with a chart we can get a little bit more accurate, but 68% is actually a really helpful number to look at. And then two standard deviations, the magic number is 95%. So 95% are between here and here, 110 and 190. And then 99.7 covers three standard deviations. Now there's still a 0.13% that's below here, and a 0.15% that's above and below. But that 99.7%, so if you had 1,000 apples, 997 of them would lie between 90 and 210. It's interesting though that after a sample of 1,000, you will get really, really big and really, really small. It's just the law of the normal curve. And so what happens is this curve, it doesn't just work for apples and potatoes, it works for anything almost natural. Lots of different things will apply in here, including things that are unnatural, like manufacturing. So if I always use the example of a twist off top. And so if we manufacture a bottle top that twists on and off, it's got to measure to a certain diameter. And so the diameter that they really want is the average, but some of these tops are actually going to be too big and some of these tops are going to be too small. And there's going to be some error in the big ones and the small ones. And so it'll work for a lot of different things. That's why we use it in manufacturing. But anyway, lots of different things are normally distributed. And so if you had one standard deviation above, that's always 68%. Two standard deviations above and below are 95, and three standard deviations above and below are 99.7. And in the next video, we'll talk about how to get these numbers and to look at numbers that are outside and within those.